Welcome to this webinar, Working in the Weeds, Navigating Anti-Corruption Complexity and Adapting Practices to Address Corruption. We would like to thank you for choosing to participate in this event, among many other options of things that you'll have been doing this afternoon. So we don't take your participation for granted and would like you to feel really welcome. My name is Henry Chingaipe. I am the Political Economy Advisor to the Malawi Anti-Corruption Civil Society Support Program that is funded by the Foreign and Commonwealth Development Office and is managed by Adam Smith International and is implemented by a range of Malawian civil society organizations. And today I am your webinar moderator. This webinar is a part of the activities associated with the Anti-Corruption Day and Week. And for us within the Adam Smith International family, we also regard this as part of a wider initiative on Thought Leaders Forum. This is a forum that is held online and in person, hosted by Adam Smith International, and it brings together experts, partners, and innovators to share knowledge on today's global challenges, emphasizing impact and innovation in international development. And of course, corruption is such one big challenge that we have to deal with in the landscape of international development. The purpose of this webinar, as I have indicated, is to join the commemoration of the Anti-Corruption Week. And we will be drawing from different perspectives in this seminar to showcase how MACCSS partners are learning to work in the weeds, because we know that corruption is a very serious issue, but when you fight corruption, corruption fights back. So it's a jungle out there that you have to deal with. And we will be trying to showcase how the partners are embracing uncertainty, adapting to shifting power dynamics, and also building alliances that make accountability and anti-corruption transformation possible. We will do this with a spotlight on the anti-corruption or in the mining sector in Malawi. We chose this because mining is such a booming sector for this country and holds so much potential for socioeconomic transformation. So welcome, and I would like also to say that the structure of the webinar is that we will have interventions. We will have interventions. I see messages that some people cannot hear me because the mic is either muted or not, but others can also hear. No problem at my end, problems at other ends. Okay. So those of you that are unable to hear, please work on your gadget because it looks like a lot more others are able to hear. Right, so the structure of this webinar is that there will be a few interventions by panelists just to cut and raise the conversation. And after that, we will dive into a long question and answer plenary session, and we'll be reflecting on the question of corruption and anti-corruption in the context of MACCSS. And MACCSS is the acronym that stands for Malawi Anti-Corruption Civil Society Support, which is the program we are working on, and it's the program that is hosting this webinar. So quickly, let me introduce to you our lead speakers today. We will first hear from Renee Kantelberg, who is the team leader of the MACCSS program, and later from June Kambalametore, who is our accountability advisor, and from Kennedy Rashid, who is a national coordinator of the Natural Resources Justice Network and implementing partner of the MACCSS program. And of course, at the very end, not because he's in any way least important, we will hear from Donal Ahern, who is the political secretary at the British High Commission in Malawi. So welcome, and I thought we should just kick off straight into the conversation of the day. So maybe we start with Renee, who is the team leader for MACCSS, to just quickly give us a little bit of an overview of this animal called MACCSS and what you are doing in the weeds to actually address the menacing problem of corruption.
Great. Thank you. I hope everybody can hear me. Thanks, Henry. I'm recognizing also a few people on the chat in the call. So wonderful to see familiar old names and faces. I hope they probe us and challenge us. Thanks, Henry. Just to say to everyone, Henry had mentioned MACCSS, the Malawi Anti-Corruption Civil Society Support Program. And basically the acronym says what we do, which is anti-corruption and support civil society. Just understand the model. We work with what we mean by civil society is we have media and investigative journalism really plays a key part in our model, as well as civil society organizations, CBOs, associations, districts, networks, etc. So the whole pot, as far as civil society goes, is in there, including the private sector as well, which I'll speak a bit more about at some point here today. We also have a number of issues, and those issues relate to, so Kennedy and his work on mining governance, anti-corruption. We have agriculture, we have infrastructure and procurement, judiciary accountability, and also because Malawi went through an election period, we also have the campaign financing issue that we looked at. And then we have the small, medium enterprise, private sector focus with traders. And then as well, amongst all those issues, we have a district focus on what we might refer to as the kind of the monitoring of procurement and projects and construction, which is the Constituency Development Fund, which has got a lot of heat in the media these days in Malawi. So that's the focus for now. And just to say, we've been running since around August, September 2024. We're going into 2026. As Henry has said, the FCGO supports us and has, you know, this is why we're having this webinar a bit, is in the sense the model that MACCSS is something that we wanted to share with others and to connect to others to see what they're doing with civil society and anti-corruption work. But the way we approached this was more from the beginning of sort of co-creative and maybe even using the words co-inquiry, in the sense that we didn't predefine these issues. We didn't predefine the organizations. We didn't do any of that. June and I, with the team, actually went out and talked to a number of different people from a number of different levels, from district to national, and not just civil society. And we gathered the issues that people thought were very prevalent and needed to be addressed in Malawi. And those are the ones I've generally read out just now. And so then we also had to think about the pot of money we have. And everybody knows the donor environment now, and what can you do with what you have. I'm probably about to say something some people might find controversial, but I think we do a lot with what we have. And I don't think some people can say we need more, we need less, etc. But because our model isn't about grants necessarily, it's more, let's say, small seed funding, which Kennedy is aware of. So, and we try to have a very technical approach with our partners. So once we do the co-inquiry, once we do the co-creation of how, you know, say, for example, the mining issue, what Kennedy and his network wanted to do and had been doing, we then unpack it and do what we call political economy around this. And that considers all the stakeholders, the institutions, people might say the rules of the game, the social norms, and formal, those kind of things, which are very important. And I'm just speeding through it really. But I really emphasize that because what we had to get right with our partners at the beginning was this way of working, which is we're not the usual funder, donor, etc. We we want to work alongside you around this issue and help identify where there's possibilities and obviously the risks, and how we can contribute to Kennedy and all the other partners we work with to their aims. So MACCSS didn't come with an aim besides doing the technical support and thinking through the problems and finding, shall I say, solutions or ways of operating in this kind of context, and to build their skills. I mean, you know, June and Kennedy might say more about this, but in a way, we recognize that there was a gap in trying to think politically, you know, smart, to have that political economy lens, to understand how to influence stakeholders, duty bearers, those who hold power, who don't want to see things change, and how to access that and how to bring that all together. So that in a nutshell is very quickly what we've been doing with our partners around these issues. Of course, we take a gender equality, social inclusion approach. You can't look at influencing stakeholders and influencing issues and then not be thinking about, well, who holds the power here and who doesn't, and how is corruption in the mining sector affecting vulnerable groups. So it's really very much a gender sensitive political economy that we do with our partners. I think, to say a couple points quickly on the success of this model, as well as some of the challenges, I think, if the word is right to say success, but I mean, the approach around working with partners in the journey can't be underestimated, because if you're going to do this work and you're going to think about, say, NRJN Kennedy, his mining ambition around mining governance and transparency in the extractive industry, etc., this is a long journey. And I think when we look at the problem, we try to build the skills, there's some level of success in that, because we're not trying to change the game in any way. We're trying to support Kennedy and his network to really think through the problems and identify the stakeholders. Challenges in that, I think there's a couple, and if my team doesn't mind me saying it, I think it takes a type of team to do this work, which means you have to be facilitative, you have to convene, you don't have all the answers. We don't have all the answers. So we work together with our partner to try to think through the issue and what we have to grapple with. And collectively, we can come up with something. So I think it's maybe a challenge, but it's also a level of humility related to this work. Yeah, I mean, of course, the challenge also is in the context, the political economy. And the players that we're up against, and trying to influence that. So I would say those two are the quick challenges. And I think, Henry, I've probably said a lot. I'd love to say a lot more, but I know we're in a discussion, so I'll leave it quickly at that.
Okay.
I hope if you have any questions or if I've left something out, do say so. But thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Renee, for setting the stage and giving a fair description of what MACCSS is all about. I would like to encourage members of the audience that if you have any comments, any questions on any of these lead interventions, please jot them down, put them in the chat, and we'll come to them when we come to the plenary session. We don't need to lose them at this stage. So thank you very much, Renee. You've said so much about the MACCSS model, but I think what is striking is that nothing is cast in stone in this implementation model, and there is quite a lot of adaptation that has to happen. And I know that June is the right-hand person that holds hands with the partners and does something with the weeds. So we can see the seeds and the seedlings. So June, I'll come to you now, and I just want you to give us, a head start on what does it mean to actually work with these partners with this model on a day-to-day basis. I am thinking that maybe this is a model that is scalable. Maybe this is a model that may be transferable. But what do people need to know of how it works?
Okay. Thank you so much, Henry. That's me, speaker. Yeah, thank you so much, Henry, for that. And good afternoon, everyone. As I have been introduced, my name is June Kambalametore. So I work as the accountability advisor for the MACCSS program. So basically, the MACCSS program, if you look at our program, the design is really reflected in the program's strategy. So basically looking at the theory of change, which really suggests that enhancing, CSO technical and organizational capacity should result in greater citizen engagement and oversight. So our added value is really in providing technical assistance to provide technical knowledge and skills for our partners. Renee has talked about the political economy analysis. We've got Jesse, we've got the media component, which is very important. We've got the MERL, we've got accountability, we've got finance. So we provide technical assistance to all our partners. We also actively involve our partners in the design process by setting co-creative interventions rather than just having passive consultations. And harnessing data is really a key priority for the MACCSS program, understanding how to use data for evidence-based advocacy. And just also building on evidence on what works, what doesn't, and doing continuous feedback loops and constant monitoring of what is happening on the ground. Constantly, we're discussing progress with our partners, looking at challenges, and just looking at the context on a monthly basis. We assess our implementing partners' performance constantly on a regular basis. And I think one of, I would say, one of the key things that we are also about is flexibility. We're pretty much flexible when it comes to adjusting work plans and budgets. So that in itself requires, rapid decision making on a daily basis. We promote coordination, strong coordination amongst our partners, ensuring that, implementation remains flexible and responsive to emerging realities on the ground. And through regular communication and sharing of challenges and insights, partners are able to make, timely adjustments to activities and their timelines and strategies. So longstanding dynamics really continue to shape the operating environment. And our mandate really remains unchanged, which is really to equip civil society organizations with knowledge, networks, and confidence to, serve serve as policy reform champions and watchdogs. So we are constantly analyzing and monitoring changes of political priorities and adjusting engagement strategies accordingly to what is going on in the environment. In terms of operational successes, I think Renee has talked about some of the successes that we have experienced in this program. But I think what I can mention is that we have really encouraged our partners to be in the driver's seat, deciding on priorities, and through this nurturing trust and also creating ownership. We have regular learning exchanges, and this is really at the center of our work. And this encourages peer-to-peer exchanges and creates a coordinated action. We've brought together different stakeholders to co-create interventions, to share evidence, and to reflect on progress and challenges. And we've also built, strong partnerships by approaching the program. I think Renee talked about this as well, by approaching the program as a partner program and not necessarily as a donor program. Our mentoring and our technical assistance is really targeted and demand-led. And our, MERL system has really promoted learning loops, both internally for all of us working on the MACCSS program, but also for our partners and including our donor as well. But maybe one key challenge that I can mention is maybe just to point out that just looking at the time frame of the project, that it's a 1-year program, which is really not enough to contribute towards the impact for improving service delivery in Malawi. But otherwise, in terms of the successes in the short period of, the program that we've had, we've seen a lot of success. In terms of strengthening implementation, or how can we further strengthen implementation, I think having key funding models that prioritize flexibility is really key. And enhancing on planning and coordinating, mechanisms, and having stronger data and feedback systems to inform timely decisions. And also we've seen, civil society organizations here really they lack capacity. So increased capacity amongst partners is really key. But in the long term, really, our vision is to have a network of capable and connected civil society organizations and local champions in the fight against corruption. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much, June, for giving us that profile of how it looks like in terms of doing the actual work on this program. We do have among us, of course, Kennedy, the National Coordinator for the Natural Resources Justice Network, working on mining governance. And we all know mining is such an important area or sector for this country because it can generate significant resources that would change the whole discourse on macroeconomics of this country. But it's also one sector that seems to be prone to the problem of corruption. And we know that if corruption remains unchecked and unaddressed in this sector, maybe the potential of the mining sector that we're all looking forward to may actually be squandered. Welcome to this webinar. We would like to hear from you how you are navigating the weeds in the mining sector.
Well, thank you, Henry. I hope you can hear me. I'll talk mainly about mining governance in Malawi. In Malawi, the landscape as of right now, I would say that it's still growing. Of course, we started mining way back during pre-colonial era, but then governance has not been a key issue in the sector. We learned a lot when we started this project after we did a study on the Extractive Industries Transparency Initiative reports, which revealed that companies and private actors in the mining sector were not adhering to principles of transparency and accountability. And on the other hand, there was also lack of compliance in terms of small-scale miners to the legislative frameworks that are there in Malawi that guide the mining sector. And on the other front, also, government itself was failing to do some of the work that supposed to be doing on the ground. So it was an interesting, I can say in the first place, it was an interesting venture because it was the first project for us to look into governance, not the technical part. So the MACCSS project introduced us to viewing issues from the governance perspective, which also helped us a lot. Well, when it comes to some of the challenges that we saw on the ground, some of them included the licensing procedures that are there in Malawi. in Malawi, the licensing procedures are still opaque. No one knows what happens. People are just moving up and down, just starting mining without even any due diligence from government. And the other part was that of contracting in the sense of companies that are operating in Malawi. Negotiations that usually do happen, they are not that transparent in Malawi. So to us, it was kind of interesting to see these things in reports, because they are in reports, only that we were failing to use the reports wisely as a country to advance the anti-corruption drive. The reports also indicated that there were some of, I can say, like illicit financial flows in the mining sector, including deals that were not very clear on how they were issued, contracts that were issued, but without clarity. So it was kind of interesting to see this in government reports, but then not seeing anything being done on the ground. Even though the EITI reports have increased transparency, I can say like they have increased transparency in the mining sector, still more when you link it up with communities and the communities at local level, local government level, and at national level, you're going to see that there's still that limited kind of information that people know about extractive governance in Malawi. Up to now, people don't know the loyalties that companies do pay. People don't know the amount of revenues that are paid to government. And government is also, some of government agencies don't even know the amount of revenue they are generating from companies. This was evidenced by the former president, who said that there's a lot of secrecy in the mining sector. And he said it while we were doing also our own interventions. So it was kind of interesting to see the head of state talking about secrecy in the mining sector, while on the ground, others are saying that there is transparency in the sector. Well, in terms of the power dynamics that we have seen in the mining sector, is that there seems to be like I can say like clientelism kind of approach, where there are gatekeepers that are there, they're controlling the whole licensing regime processes and contracting processes. And then there are others that do come in as intermediaries that do facilitate the whole processes. And then there are communities that are on the ground that usually do face the impacts of mining activities in Malawi. Well, this was interesting because we learned a lot when we went to one of the districts where we are implementing the MACCSS project, where we found that the mining sector in that district is fragmented. It has layers of actors that are operating, or there are sponsors of illegal gold mining in that district, and then there are buyers, and then there are middlemen, and then there are diggers who usually come from other countries, and others are from within Malawi. But the way it is done, it doesn't even follow the legal framework that we have in Malawi. Well, in terms of reforms still remain a challenge. In Malawi, though, the reports, for example, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative reports have been recommending reforms for there to be prudent resource governance. Still, there are challenges that government has not embraced the recommendations that have been provided by itself, I can say it in that way. Well, in terms of how the MACCSS PA approach has assisted us, as a natural resources justice network, in the past, we were just approaching issues. Just when we hear something has happened, we were just going there, doing demonstrations, marching, and making all sorts of noise. Now, the MACCSS project has assisted us in learning how to navigate problems on the ground and how to know who are allies and who are opponents, and who are swingers, and how we can use each of the actors in the sector, which has helped a lot in that now I would say that the Natural Resources Justice Network is, I can say, like a partner for government, even in the private sector, in the mining sector, because the private sector even engaging the Natural Resources Justice Network to verify some of the, I can say, like reports that usually come to them by their own staff, or even by communities, or even by, I can say, like experts that usually go to their mining sites. Well, in terms of other things that we have learned also on how to do problem analysis itself. Now we are able now to not just address the fruits of the problem, but to go deeper to address the root cause of problems that are in the mining sector. For example, in terms of corruption, we noted that the root cause was the legal framework. The legal framework was given too much discretion. Like I said, it was giving discretionary powers to some officials, and it was kind of weak in terms of how to address issues of, for example, illicit financial flows or corruption itself in terms of sanctions. But then when we engaged, it was also interesting to learn that government took on board some of the recommendations that we put forth to them, that there's a need to look into this in the mining sector. So now we are able to address the root causes of problems that are happening in the mining sector. Case in point being the illegal gold mining that is happening. Now you might see online so many stories about deaths that are happening in Malawi by illegal miners. But then we have recommended to government. We recommended to government way back in June when we started this project. We recommended to them that there's a need to formalize the artisanal small-scale miners and at least equip them with just basic knowledge on how they can do responsible mining. Now government is going on the ground. They have put aside a special fund which they want now to formalize the artisanal small-scale miners. Of course, though, there are so many progress that I can share with you. The other things, because that we have also faced are challenges as civil society. Civil society actors in the mining sector, I would say that we've just started now, I can say, like convening together formally, because in the past, we were fragmented. Others in the same sector were focusing on a specific issue in the mining sector, but then not engaging with the network itself as a whole. But now I would say that with the MACCSS project, we are able to convene and we are able to engage all 35 members. I can say 35 paid up members because we are a paid up network. So all of them we convene and we usually discuss what is happening in specific districts. And the other challenges that of technical. Technically, most of the civil society actors still, they don't view mining issues as governance issues. They're still viewing mining issues as technical kind of issues, engineering kind of issues, not governance issues. But then, of course, this challenge, we have seen it across in other civil society actors in districts. To us, we still feel that it's a governance issue. It's all about systems, institutions, and how decisions are made when issuing licenses, even regulating mining activities that are happening on the ground. So I would say that in a nutshell, the experience has been a learning curve. The challenge remains resources are still constrained. We're still constrained. It means after this project, we'll have to go up and down to look for more resources to go to other districts and other areas. I think that's what I can share as of right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kennedy, for that exposition of your experiences working on corruption, promoting accountability and transparency in mining. and also for emphasizing that the key issue in mining is actually governance, and it's less about the technical aspects of the mining, which only play out in a particular governance context. Thank you very much for that. I thought that before we go into a very open question and answer plenary session, maybe we should hear a few reflections from Donal, representing the British High Commission in Malawi. I mean, from your point of view, how does it feel supporting accountability efforts, anti-corruption efforts led by local organizations?
Thank you very much, Henry, and good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, I was going to give you a few reflections, Henry, on how the donor looks at all this. I'm going to be brief, but just very quickly, the British government has been working with our friends and our partners in Malawi on anti-corruption since 1995. It's a long-standing relationship. It tends to be focused or have been focused on strengthening institutions, the ACB, the police, the Director of Public Prosecutions. But what we always kind of thought was ultimately it's for Malawians to hold corruption to account. You know, there's only so much you can do at an institutional level. And that's really where MACCSS comes in. It's about CSOs representing the people of Malawi in holding corruption to account. And, you know, obviously, it's important to us, the British government. We put a lot of money into Malawi, about $70 million this year. Corruption impacts that money. We don't want to lose taxpayers' money to corruption, but we all want the same thing as donors. We want to work with Malawians, with the government of Malawi, to create a prosperous Malawi for its people, for its businesses. And we really do believe that corruption is holding Malawi back. So anything we can do to help that is a positive. And I think a final point on why corruption is important. We think this is something that we can help Malawi with. We have similar institutions. We speak a similar language. We understand each other. And I think, you know, this is an area where we I hope have something to offer. But Henry, coming back to your point, I think the way we operate and the way we feel comfortable is by having a Malawian-led civil society component. It has to be Malawian-led. It has to be bottom-up, not top-down, and it has to be about partnership. And I think how we've worked with NRJN has been a really good example of that, because NRJN have the skills, the vision, the objectives, the passion, and through ASI we can introduce them to skills such as PEA analysis, working with the media, stratcoms, and guess what? Those skills are all with Malawians as well. So, you know, ASI have a fairly easy job here. They are bringing the two sides together. But as long as it's Malawian-led and as long as we're responding to Malawian objectives, then my role is to let the partners and let the implementer get on with it and just stand back and let you guys do your thing. That's how I see it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you very much, Donal, for that insight. Stand back and just let them go on with it. Very useful. Very useful. I will want to get into the plenary session, and I have a few things about the plenary session that I want to say. We will be welcoming comments, brief ones, questions, pointed ones. We will not be accepting members of the audience to start doing their own presentations, but raise questions, make observations, so that we can have a conversation. So I'll be providing a maximum of 2 minutes per person, and make sure your comments and questions are packaged in those 2 minutes, so that we can have as many people participate as possible. If necessary, specify the the panelists that would like to address the question or to address the comment that you want. And if you have the floor, also mention your name. But also, more importantly, to get as many questions and comments, please use the chat box. Type in your questions, your comments or observations, and we'll create time in the course of this plenary session to reflect on them, and we may direct them to panelists to actually address them. So if you show me hands of those that want to speak, and I will quickly identify you. Okay, I see Alan Ntata as the number one. So far, number two is Linda Ofori-Kwafo. So let's go with those two, starting with the Alan and then Linda. Alan?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Thank you very much. My name is Zed Alan Ntata. I'm an anti-corruption and governance expert. I lead the Africa Political Juridity Institute. It's a new institute, it's a think tank, and we're looking at Africa-born solutions to issues of governance and anti-corruption. And my comment will lead to a question, and my comment is this, that I have worked in the Malawian anti-corruption space and in the Malawian governance space. And what I found from true experience is that the problem of corruption in Malawi is very unique because it does not necessarily respond positively to the language, as the representative from the British government there has said, the language, we speak the same language, but the response of the people to that language is different. I know that because when I worked in the anti-corruption space, I could get phone calls from presidents telling me to stop prosecuting somebody and so forth. So we already know that the bigger problem here is not at the micro level, it's at the macro level. And here then is my question. With these sort of problems which we think are known, what are we doing to address corruption at that fundamental level? Because I believe that our efforts at the micro level can be Malawian-led, as the representative there has said, or can be donor-funded and probably well done, but we know that the real problem lies at Malawian legitimacy with regard to the question of corruption. So for me, I feel that the conversation, as good as it is right now, I think that even the civil society, the question is, when are we going to start addressing this really big problem, the elephant in the room, the fact that institutions begin to get captured by the very players that are supposed to defend them? That's my question.
Thank you very much, Alan. A very fundamental question. I see people nodding. I think there will be some good reflection on this one. Linda, this is your time. You have the floor.
Okay, so thank you very much. So my name is Linda Ofori-Kwafo, as you rightly mentioned, and I work on the Serious and Organized Crime Program here in Ghana. I'm the team leader. It's being funded by FCDO and implemented by Adam Smith International. So I've been doing anti-corruption for so many years. I've lost count, and still we have so much corruption in Ghana. Yeah, but then when I joined the call, I joined a bit late, but I heard a discussion on transparency, and then I wanted to bring up the issue of data. So I've done a lot of anti-corruption programming, and then you realized some of them to improve service delivery. In my last project that was being funded by USAID, we're looking at improving service delivery so far as the health, education, agriculture, water and sanitation issues are concerned. And then we realized that sometimes you go to the field, you talk to citizens, you want to get information, and the public service people are not able to give you the information you are requiring let alone to help you in your programming, and also to citizens to be capacitated to demand accountability and transparency. So sometimes when you are looking at it from civil society perspective, you might think it's intentional. But then as I go on in my work, you realize it's actually sometimes also lack of data. The data does not just exist. In our serious and organized crime program that we are implementing, we had some training for CID officials about some 3 weeks ago, preparing them for upcoming FATF evaluation. And we realized that, so they've been dealing with the issues of money laundering, they've been dealing with issues of terrorism financing, but they do not have the data to support this. And so in anti-corruption work, in order to promote transparency and accountability, there should be data available. And I'm talking about data presented well enough to make meaning. So sometimes even when the data is available, it doesn't make meaning to the ordinary citizen. I want to know what can be done or what is being done to help institutions capture the right kind of data. The work is done, no data to present. So evaluation now, we are not looking at the technical aspect of whether you've passed legislation to do with ABCD, but we are looking at the effectiveness. So how many money laundering cases have been prosecuted and over the period, what is CID doing, but they do not have anything to show. So what can be done? So it's not always the fault that government does not want to give us the information, but government does not have it. They are not capacitated in that area. So I think that's something we have to also look at in order to help in promoting transparency and accountability, and also help in fighting corruption. So data not being available for citizens to demand accountability is very critical in the fight against corruption. So I want any of the panel members to respond to this.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Linda, for that very important issue about the usefulness and, unfortunately, the inadequacy of data that is useful for programming. I want to pass on to Fletcher Tembo, and then finally for this round to Jen Kanyangare. And after that, I will get the panelists to sort of reflect on this. I don't know if Jay of MACCSS is around. I think I would want you to speak also on the data issues. Fletcher, you have the floor.
Hello. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I hear you, Doc.
Okay, good. I'm Fletcher Tembo. I'm Malawian. I work on, I'm an independent researcher right now, independent consultant. I'm in the UK, but coming home next month, January. I know the Malawi context, and generally we work together in a number of things. I do political economy analysis as well. Yeah, so a few issues. Some I'll build on what Alan said, which I agree with, but maybe I'll just post something there. I'd asked before this forum whether we've done some analysis of the kind of regime types that we have, whether we can say the current DPP is more open, can create more spaces for engagement than perhaps MCP was or the others. I think Henry might speak to that, because it's important to always see most of these institutions, SCB, what we are talking about, they get captured by particular regimes or particular political orientations than others. So I would like to hear something about that. Secondly, given that you have only 1 year, I think you need to look for high impact pathways. Where do you think you can, not something that you just do, but where you think there is a high leverage? Perhaps what you might do is just achieve some intermediate outcomes, which may be useful for organizations in Malawi to then go forward with. I think don't go with the whole log frame. I think negotiate for what is very high value add in the current theory of change, and concentrate on that one. So it's just an advice. The other part is data, yes, was mentioned, but I did some work for HIVOS, and that was on the politics of in the data chain, value chain. What happens when you engage various ministries and maybe others, and what kind of data is really difficult? Some of it may be easier, but in the anti-corruption sphere, most of it may be difficult. it may require engaging certain institutions, and that builds back to what you call collaboration. Who is in that collaboration space? Because to me, what is required for this kind of program are those that are leveraging actors that are leveraging certain actions. They don't have to be there like in a committee or there for a long-term hold, but you understand what they will bring into that collaboration, and you stick with it and say, you see where the leverages are happening. And the last point I want to make is that rules in use and rules of the game. There is often a confusion on this one. Many people they're saying rules, they're talking about what has been written, but we know very well in Malawi that writing and doing are quite different. I think now where I am myself, I concern a bit more with the rules in use. Where can you get, when you go to the Director of Public Prosecution, what can he do in this space under the rules or the PPP, you know, the kind of procurement? Which ones are seemingly usable? You don't want to create too much of us versus them. You want to be showing where are their spaces so that when you demonstrate change, therefore, you can get more change coming forward rather than stumbling blocks everywhere. Yeah, anyway, those are just comments and perhaps implicating and implying questions in certain cases. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Fleischer, for those reflections. Quite useful for many other things that we are trying to do in the MACCSS program. I'll move on to Jane. After Jane, I'll read out 2 questions from the chat, and I want to get my panelists ready to reflect on these issues. Jane, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Henry. My name is Jane Kanyangale, and I recently graduated from the University of Malawi. So I just wanted to know what efforts are there, and this is going to Renee as well as Donal. What efforts are there currently to engage and educate young people in anti-corruption initiatives? And I believe that as somebody who is passionate about Malawi having less corruption issues, I wanted to hear from June, from your experience, what do you think are the best initiatives or strategies in order to ensure that the youth have capacity to champion some of these efforts that are currently ongoing? Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Jane, for those very pointed questions. And the panelists, I see all of them nodding, so they will probably give you very good answers. We do have questions in the chat. First from Charles Baduya. How is MACCSS learning from interventions by the National Anti-Corruption Alliance in terms of strategy for combating organized corruption? And also from Tapiwa Chitwere, you have talked about adaptive programming, but in practice, what kind of learning actually trigger adaptation, and what kinds end up sitting in reports without shifting decisions, and why? Those important 2 questions. I want to get to you, Renee, first, to reflect on these questions, comments, and observations to the extent that you can, not everything, and I'm not going to give you a whole lot of time. You just have 2 minutes to make your first intervention, and we move to the next panelist, and we make sure that all the questions have been addressed, and then we can take another round of questions and comments.
Sure. You're getting me back, Henry. Great. Thank you. 2 minutes. First of all, just to say hello to those who ask questions. Linda, hello in Ghana there. Long time. Fletcher and others. Thank you. So where to start? I mean, fantastic questions. Not everything has a simple answer. I think I will say one point of clarification, MACCSS will go into 2026. We started in September 2024, so we are 18 months going into many more months ahead. So I just wanted to point that out, but that relates to Fletcher's point, which I absolutely agree, which connects to also the point about adaptive programming, maybe, high impact pathways. This is something that we're definitely as a team, as a program, that we need to always be considering. I think it's connected very much to analyzing the political economy around each issue, not just the general political economy in Malawi and anti-corruption. So, because there are issues that we just know are going to take a long time or have big risks around them. Not that we're not interested in risky issues, because the issues we work on are risky, but I think it is that connection between looking where we want to get to in the time frame we have with the partners and the issues, and constantly revisiting that, Fletcher, which around the adaptive programming and thinking about, maybe Jay will come in as well, around triggering adaptation. I can honestly say sometimes we're exhausted by adaptation. We are constantly pivoting in the sense, particularly because of an election year. So we now have a new government compared to the one before. So lots of new windows of opportunity, working with partners. So we're not a program that puts reports on a shelf and sits with it. In fact, we're definitely much more about analyzing with the partner, and they're reviewing their work plans and their budgets consistently with the issues they're grappling with. In June and Henry and that sit with partners and look at the issues. So I would say it's a constant, it's continuous, the political economy with the issue. And then to Fletcher's point, making for sure it has value added, and that it actually can be impactful, which I don't know if this will connect to Alan's point, because maybe even Henry, you can come in on this. You know, Alan, and to everybody, see, we work on the demand side of the problem, and that is to influence the supply side, the DPP, their manifesto promises, etc., even the ACB, who they're going to get in and how is that going to work. So this is, as you know, very complicated, and we have a sister program we haven't mentioned, which is TSOC, Tackling Serious and Organized Corruption in Malawi. And we work quite closely together on these issues, and they take time. And so one of the things that my team and I and Max program and the partners, more importantly, time isn't something we want to waste. So I think this is why, when I look at all the work across FCDO for a number of years, this issue, or this, what should we say, this added value of media and investigative journalism and exposing corruption, and the demand side, putting the pressure on, it is the one avenue that I think we have to just keep working on for the response to come from the government, to the response to change some of these institution bottlenecks. That's my quick answer. The last one, Henry, with Linda on data. One of the things we have is we're working with the Construction Sector Transparency Initiative, and they have come up with a digital algorithm system across all procurement projects in Malawi, and they've created a criterion, red flags, which they're now partnering with the government and the entities to try to look at those stages of projects and where the red flags are. And so just quickly on that, that's one way we're addressing data with a partner within the construction and procurement sector, and an algorithm system. And we also are letting civil society media know about these risks and red flags around projects nationally and at the district level. Those are my quick reflections. I'm happy to say more, but I know there's others on the panel. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Renee. While we are still on the question of data, motivated by the question from Linda, I would like to bring in Jay to say something about how we are approaching harvesting data that can become useful for anti-corruption initiatives, particularly with civil society, but also to point out that the data portal you talked about, Jay has just posted in the chat the link to that data portal for the construction sector. Jay, would you like to come in now and say something about data to complete the response from Renee?
Sure, thanks, Henry. So, I mean, I think of data in different ways. And by the way, hello, everybody. My name's Jay, working on the MACCSS program as the sort of MERL person, together with Emmanuel. So there are different types of data for different uses. So on the one hand, working with partners, and this was mentioned earlier on by our speakers, you know, is talking about evidence-based advocacy. You know, if we're lobbying for change, if we're highlighting what some of those issues are, whether quantitatively or qualitatively, you know, how are we pulling the data together for that? So that's working with partners around that. We also think about data for decision making. So whether it's our CSO or whether it's the state, as many have referred to, or you could look at the link that I put in the chat, you know, data for decision making, who is collecting it, you know, how can it be made simple and easily understood so that decisions can be made on a timely basis? And thirdly, if you think about from the MACCSS lens or the donor lens, data for programming, you know, what data we collecting to show that, you know, we're moving in the right direction. And if we're not moving in the right direction, what do we do about it? And that in turn, Henry, kind of speaks to learning. We're not thinking about data without thinking about learning at the same time. And so data isn't necessarily something that somebody needs to go out and collect and bring it back to a head office somewhere and someone sits and analyzes it. It could be identified through conversation. It could be identified through observation. So at MACCSS, you know, again, there's different ways in which we're learning, whether it's through political economy analysis, whether it's through we do regular pause and reflects with all our partners together in one space, whether we do investigations ourselves. And that could lead to data for evidence-based advocacy or for programming, or it could lead to learning, which feeds into the kind of work June does with partners to say, do we need to rethink our strategy? Do we need to leverage something, you know, a new window of opportunity? How do we pivot towards that? So if you like, there's so much interconnectedness between data, decision making, learning, strategy testing. We mustn't see them all as separate compartments. But what we've tried to do differently here, and it's going back to some of the comments about adaptive programming and reporting, is to really do away with traditionally all this kind of pages of reporting, you know, what ordinarily generates in a program like this. We've really shelved all of that. So for example, monitoring visits with partners is a conversation. It's not a report. Pause and reflect is bringing people together in a space to talk out loud these issues and experiences and ideas. So we have tried to completely minimize, thanks also to the understanding of our donors, that, you know, we keep reporting to what's required for accountability, but we don't drown everybody in reporting, so that we can pivot easily, learn easily, but also use data more easily. Thanks, Henry.
Thank you very much, Jay, for your intervention on data and the different things that we're doing in the program to harvest that data and also to use it immediately for different purposes within the program and hopefully beyond it. June, a few questions directed to your portfolio, including those that came through the chat. And maybe you could get started on reflecting on those questions.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Henry. Okay, maybe I'll start with the question that was asked from Jane. Thank you, Jane, for your question. I think you were looking at, or your question was really to look at what are the best initiatives or strategies for the youth to be able to champion anti-corruption. I mean, of course, there are a lot of best practices that I can talk about. So, for example, I know, like, for example, the youth clubs. I know there's some universities that do have youth clubs that, work on anti-corruption issues. At community level, there are a lot of initiatives that are happening that really encourage the youth to be able to participate in anti-corruption work. For example, sometimes for us, really our partners will make a deliberate effort to include the youth in the activities that they're implementing. But also the use of digital campaign. Now I think everybody is using their phones and all that. So digital campaign is really another critical strategy or initiative, I think, to get the youth involved in championing anti-corruption. I know also, for example, the Anti-Corruption Bureau have now started. They have a curriculum. They've embedded in the education curriculum that kids at an early age start learning about anti-corruption issues. So that they're growing up with integrity and all that. So I think that's also another critical initiative that is being addressed towards the youth. And then also just getting youth-led organizations involved in the work, in the anti-corruption space. There are a lot of youth-led organizations, even mostly at district level. We've seen a lot of youth-led organizations. So it's really critical to get these involved, to be able to get the youth to champion anti-corruption. There was a question, I think, in the chat from Tapiwa asking about adaptive programming. So, I mean, really for us, when we talk about adaptive programming, we are looking at real-time ground level feedback. And that is really what helps us to, make quick decisions and adapt in terms of what is going on. Even I'll give an example. We had the elections in September. One of our partners is looking at political party financing. And their project was really focused or targeted more towards the elections. When we were planning the projects initially, we thought, we could do some activities just before the elections. But I think one lesson that we learned is that I think it proved really difficult to implement some activities just before the elections. Most people really just want to take a step back and not implement any activities during this time. So we had to quickly just shift things around and say, okay, if we are not doing these activities, so we're now looking at post-election, what activities can we do that still, give us the end result that we're looking at in the program. So we are really just working on the ground, getting real-time information, constantly having conversations with partners, just to understand what is going on, and just also analyzing the political landscape. So we have people like Henry constantly analyzing the political landscape, and based on that, that's how we adapt to the work that we're doing. Yeah, Henry, I don't know if there was another question that was posed to me.
I think you have addressed the ones that you could address immediately. Just to point out that there is a question in the chat about how do we get MDAs to actually upload relevant data, like in the cost portal, the IPPI. And the question is specific on the district councils, not actually uploading the data. And then I want to move to Donal. A few reflections. I think there was a direct question also on whether there is a space in current programming within the FCGO on programs and projects that may seek to empower young people to engage in anti-corruption and promotion of integrity and so on. Donal?
Yeah, thank you, Henry. Yes, and there was a question from Alan as well, which I think is in my patch, and that kind of linked into Fletcher's point about the real rules of the game. So if I take that one first, but Alan, you asked what are we doing to address corruption at a macro level, and you kind of distinguish between the micro and the macro. I would actually divide it into three: the micro, the macro, and the political. So I think on the micro level, it is very much about getting Malawians involved, and MACCSS is a really good example of that. And I think the micro level is important. If CSOs, if Malawians hold corruption to account at their level, I think that will make a difference. But Renee touched upon what I call the macro level, and that's really the institution building that I spoke about, that the British government has been involved in for quite a long time now. But I think, this has been Malawian driven. The British government have played a very minor role, but we have supported how the Malawian anti-corruption infrastructure, how they investigate, how they prosecute, how they seize assets instead of going down very cumbersome and difficult criminal processes. So I think there is quite a lot going on at the macro level, and it gives the politicians the levers to pull to sort of fight corruption. And that's really where I'm working, and where this FCDO program is working, at the micro and the macro level. Now, when you're talking about the political level, of course, that's an issue, but it is a bit beyond my pay grade. But that involves different levers of influence and pressure. And from the British government side, that is obviously diplomatic pressure, but it's also the media, it's also elections, that kind of thing. So I look at it in a slightly different way than perhaps you are, and I'm sure you'll come back on that, Alan. And just very quickly on the youth, Jane, the point I was going to make on that is, it's not just the British government involved in anti-corruption. There's quite a lot of donors in this space. UNDP, for example, they've had a project specifically aimed at school children with, I can't remember the exact details, but it was an anti-corruption book that's used in schools. So there are other, and the German government are also involved. The EU are heavily involved in this area as well. So, I think we need to take a broader perspective here, not just what the FCDO is doing. Back to you, Henry.
Thank you very much, Donal, for that insight. There are a number of issues that have, of course, come through the questions. And I think that I need to say two things. That fighting corruption means getting 5 components of a framework working. And that means you are educating people about corruption, you're bringing awareness. You are also putting in place systems and practices that make it hard for corruption to happen. So you are working on prevention of corruption. But even when people are aware and you have systems to prevent corruption, corruption still happens. And so you need to move to the third component, which is the oversight and investigations. And make sure that those are done, they are done very well, there is capacity for it, and so on. When investigations establish wrongdoing, you need to prosecute. You need to mete out sanctions, either administratively or through the courts of law, through the process of prosecution. And sometimes this happens, and there are judgments. But maybe the judgment, the sentencing, the penalty is also very weak to act as an effective deterrence, and also to actually punish the wrongdoer for the things they have done. So it does look like, for me, we do need all these components in the anti-corruption framework to be working. And very often, interventions are focusing on one and not on the others, or different interventions, different stakeholders working on different components, but not in very good synergy. And so one weak component will affect the entire anti-corruption framework. You can educate people, and I think that in this country, a lot of people know about corruption because it has become like a standard operating procedure for anything. And they know that there are institutions to investigate corruption, to exercise oversight and bring things out. And they know they should be prosecuted. But is prosecution happening? How well is it happening? Is it the case that there is always political interference at prosecution level? If it happens at that level, it doesn't matter what you are doing at all these other levels. That one weak point on prosecution will affect the fullness of the anti-corruption framework. So this is, I think, something we need to be thinking about in terms of programming, and maybe different countries are stronger on different components and so on and so forth. But this is our reality that we do need to sort of engage with. I will not say so much because I am only here to moderate the session, and I want to tell you we will close this webinar at 3:30, so we have 9 minutes. And I am happy to take additional hands of people who wish to raise issues. I think I will be happy to take 3. I see Justin as number 1. Can I see the next one? The next one, please. I see Alani is coming back as number 2. Can I see the last one? Okay, forever keep your peace. Justin, you have the floor. Is it Justin or Justin?
Hi, sorry.
It's Justine.
Yeah, thank you very much for the very interesting presentations. Hi, Renee. It's nice to see you again.
Hi, Justine. Good to hear your voice. Sorry to interrupt.
Sure, really, really interesting. I guess, God, there's so many things I could ask, but we only have a short amount of time. I guess I was wondering about the political economy analysis and thinking about what Donal said about the different levels of working. And I guess in the mineral governance space at the moment, there's a huge amount happening internationally around the race for, new resources, critical minerals, and so on. I was wondering if you have a kind of international lens and what that means for opportunities and challenges on the ground and how that's shaping, for example, private sector behavior. And that leads to a question also of whether there are examples of engagement with the private sector, specifically in this mineral governance work stream. And then I also, sorry to ask one more thing. You also mentioned, I think, Kennedy, that even though EITI had mentioned lots of necessary reforms in the past, they haven't had any traction. So I was wondering also if your work had any success in influencing EITI, which is not always a very adaptive process. Yeah, so that's quite a lot, but if you could answer it, that'd be really interesting. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for that question. I'll let Renee speak to the first part of that question or that intervention. And on private sector engagement, I think we have a more fresh, recent example from our partner, Natural Resources Justice Network, engaging with the private sector in the mining sector, and we'll let Kennedy speak to that. Alan, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. I think I'm going to use a metaphor to try and get this in real quick. And the metaphor is this. I believe, having worked in the Malawi anti-corruption sector, I think that the challenge is that most programs that we are pushing in Malawi are to try and get people not to steal. Those programs can work. I can be convinced that I shouldn't steal. I shouldn't be a thief. But I think what we need are programs that make Malawians see that stealing is bad, even if I'm not the one who is stealing. so that the general consensus of the community, the general consensus of the polity understands that this is bad behavior. Because when we target individuals, as Donal has suggested there, that it's important, yes, it is important at a personal level, but at a national level, it cannot build a nation. What you want is to build a nation that appreciates the worst aspects of corruption, the devastating aspects of it, and the understanding that we shouldn't do this the way other polities do it. If we cannot build a society like that, and if we cannot find solutions for a society like that, our efforts are always going to be, the success is going to be limited. So my challenge and my appeal to attending this, and this is very good for I attend these, is to try and appeal to us that perhaps it's time to look at new solutions. Because for African polities, we know very well that a lot of what we are doing is simply maintaining the same style, institution building, capacity building, and so forth. But what if we started thinking differently? What if we empower local communities? What if we empower civil society as we are doing here, but empower them to build a Malawi that understands the bad side of the fact that this is corruption and it shouldn't be done that. Now, we can do that, but we need to be very, very open about the challenges, about the failures of the current frameworks. If we continue pushing the same frameworks, believing that they will eventually create societies that will look like the global north societies, I don't believe that the past 60 years is evidence enough for me to tell us that we will not build a global north looking like societies in terms of corruption if we continue the same models. And so for me, my appeal to these sort of frameworks and to these sort of forums is it's time to begin to think about changing. What is going wrong in Africa that we have gotten so wrong that we need to begin to get it right? Otherwise, we're going to, be the experiment that never ends. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm very passionate about this, and I decided that I should leave it to the last end there. Thank you. Sorry.
Your passion comes through in the question, Alan. We hear it loud and clear. I want us to wind up, and so I'll be giving panelists opportunities, first to address this last set of questions, but also to make your exit statement in terms of this webinar. Shall I start with Kennedy?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, I think mine was, I didn't have many questions, it's just comments. So I'm going to go straight to the comments. I think in terms of civil society participation in the anti-corruption drive, I would say that we have tried, we're still pushing. Currently, Malawi, now we have district civil society networks at district level, which, for example, us as a network are also working with. And at each district level, there's a governance and anti-corruption committee that usually looks at anti-corruption activities that are happening at local level. And in terms of community participation, for example, for this project, we have held district mining intervals where the communities were engaging with Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Mining, and Anti-Corruption Bureau, MRI, all of them, they came to engage with the community in terms of mining governance. And the communities were relaying what they're experiencing on the ground compared to what is written in the reports. And it was interesting to see some of the responses being made on point that government was responding on point, that are going to do initial interventions on a particular issue. Case in point in Balaka, where there are new mines there, that happened. My 2 minutes is about to wind up. In terms of platforms that exist for collaboration or for civil society to work with, to work on anti-corruption, in Malawi we have what we call the Open Government Partnership. It's something that us as a network through this project, we are funding. We have funded some meetings, and we are about to fund another meeting, I think, in 2 weeks, where it will be the end of year meeting for Open Government Partnership, specifically on natural resources governance. And that open government partnership, I can say it's one platform that assists civil society to engage directly with government agencies on things that are happening in their specific sectors. The other platform, I know you asked about critical minerals. We have the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. This is also a co-created kind of initiative where the civil society is sitting at the table with mining companies and government agencies that do make decisions on behalf of Malawians here right here in Malawi. So for us as a network, we do usually send to civil society representatives, that is organizations, not individuals, that sit in the stakeholder group, it's like a board which analyzes and gathers data about revenues and I can just say revenues and licenses that are being issued out there in Malawi. And they do like an audit report. It's more like an audit report. So since we are at the table, now we know what happens and we know some of the issues that are still outstanding in the sector and why there's less practice and more of good documents in terms of law. My closing remark on critical mineral, we're still developing a green mineral strategy as a country. My closing remark is that let's view corruption as the area speaker states, as a political but also as a governance issue, not as a technical kind of issue. That's what I've learned on the ground, that people are viewing corruption as a technical issue, not as a governance issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kennedy, for your parting shot. June?
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Henry. I think for me, my closing is really a quick one. And I mean, for me, I look at anti-corruption work that it's not really about perfect plans. It's about adaptive partnerships. So change really happens through partnerships, through experimentation. And I think for us, for this program, FCJ will, gave us a bit of that leeway that we could experiment, try what works, what doesn't. So this has really been good for the program. And really, the task is not to, eliminate uncertainty, but it's just to navigate, with integrity and learning. Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to take it to Renee, but before I do that, I just want to check in with Donal. So you can give us your parting reflection, and then I will push it to Renee to wind up.
Thanks, Henry. Just very briefly, yes, Alan, coming back to you again, I think you're right. I think, we constantly need to look at new solutions in the anti-corruption battle. I mean, I would just reinforce the British government is a friend and a partner to Malawi, but there's only so much that we can do. And I think, when Malawi is looking at new solutions, that has to be a Malawian process. I don't think really there's much of a role there for us, but it is a constant process that needs to happen to work out how to fight this battle. So absolutely agree with you on that point. Thank you very much, Henry.
Thank you very much, Donal. Renee?
I'll just take a few seconds to say thank you to everyone for joining us. Thank you, Henry, for moderating, and to the panel. More of these conversations need to happen. I think it's relevant to all of us. So I hope to continue to do this on different themes and different areas. But by and large, very big problems, as we know, anti-corruption work needs to tackle. So we try our part in it, and that's it. On we go.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Renee. I will mention here, but there was a question about what the MACCSS program is doing to learn from NACA, National Alliance for Anti-Corruption. We did have an engagement with them early on in terms of their approach, what we could learn from them, and we build lessons from there into the design of the MACCSS, and then we roll it in a process of co-creation with the partners. I just thought that Charles should not think we didn't see that question and we ignored it. We actually engaged with the NACA in that respect. So thank you very much, panelists, for being available and for provoking the discussions, and the audience for your resilience and participation, the questions and the comments. All of them very well noted, very encouraging. I think they help push the discourse forward, not just the discourse, but also the practice of anti-corruption in a very difficult environment such as ours. In case you have forgotten my name, I have been your moderator, and my name is Henry Chingaipe. And here is where we sign off for this webinar. Thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.